Welcome every participants to Change Talks. So basically, Change Talks is a platform where we promote the causes of various change leaders and their impact, whatever they have did on field or through their researches or through their various expertise. So we are an organization who have started just this year only, and keeping the COVID times in our mind, we are organizing various kind of webinars and even the change talks with individual change leaders. So this is our very first webinar, and which is on a very interesting topic, and we have got various eminent speakers with us today. So we are expecting to have a great session ahead. And to begin with, I will start sharing the brief profile of our speakers, and I will just share the screen. Yeah. Today we have uh, Professor Prashanto Kumar Ghosh, who is a Fulbright Fellow and the Professor of Department of Social Work, Vishwabharati University. He did his MA in Social Work from Indore School of Social Work in 1981 and PhD from Vishwabharati University in 1996. Previously, he was engaged at TIS and Ministry of Labour, Government of India. He wrote many books and research papers on social development and attended various international exchange programs. As a part of social work practice, he is engaged in promoting social entrepreneurship, mobilizing rural women artisans since the last 30 years, and he is now based out of West Bengal. So welcome, Professor Ghosh, and thank you for joining this panel today with us. So going forward, we have Dr. Rajdeep Singh. Dr. Rajdeep Singh is Assistant Professor at the Center for Labour Studies and Social Protection at Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Guwahati campus. Prior to joining TIS, he was teaching at the Department of Economics of St. Joseph's College of Arts and Science, Bengaluru, and Research Associate at the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. He obtained a PhD in economics from the Institute of Social and Economic Change, Bengaluru. He is co-editor of Employment and Labour Market in the Northeast India, Interrogating Structural Changes, Routledge 2018, and Institution and Sustainable Livelihood, Issues and Challenges of Transformation, Palgrave Macmillan 2017. He has published several articles in peer-reviewed journals and chapters in edited books. His areas of research and teaching interest include the development economics, poverty, agrarian studies, industrial economics, and labor economics. He was engaged in various research projects on issues related to poverty, employment, inequality, and labor, supported by various organizations such as UNDP, ICMOD, IWMI, Oxfam Germany, Arias Society under the government of Assam, and ONGC, NIPCO, ActionAid, and etc. So thank you, Dr. Shingo, for joining us today in our panel, and we are really privileged to have you with us. Next, we have Mr. Prabir Basu, who is advocating the rights of the children across the country in West Bengal, particularly for last 30 years, formerly been associated with the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights, and also represented NCPCR in West Bengal, and National Convener of Campaign Against Child Labour, CACL, from 2008 to 2012, and is Executive Committee member of CACL now, also National Council member in the National Right to Education Forum, while at present he is convening the both CACL and RT in the state of West Bengal. Also to mention, he is the director of the SPAN, which is a non-profit organization based out of Kolkata. And last and foremost, Mr. Manoj Kumar Sekar, who is the panel moderator for the session. And he is a development professional with over 22 years of direct working experience in West Bengal and Delhi in program designing, planning, monitoring, and liaising with the donors and government departments and program evaluation. Apart from that substantial part of his career, has been spent on working in the areas of education and child protection sector. He has founded the development professionals for helping non-profit organizations technically to build capacities. He is also one of the gap experts of Global Action on Poverty, West Bengal chapter. So thank you all speakers along with the moderator for joining us today for the session. And I would like to hand over the session to Mr. Sirkar for taking it ahead. And over to you, Mr. Sirkar. And thanks again to all the panelists and all the participants in the webinar, as well as all the viewers in the Facebook page, as we are already sharing this webinar directly in our Facebook page in Change Talks. Over to you, Mr. Sirkar.
Thank you so much, Indranil. This is absolutely a great opportunity to be with all these three eminent speakers. I welcome them all in the discussion. And this is happening at a time when the entire world is going through a very difficult situation. The pandemic of COVID has created such a situation where not a single person is left out of facing the problem. And at this point of time, what is happening is children have suffered a lot, and the rights of the children are at stake. There are several situations happening where the rights of the children are being violated. They are out of school for last 3 months. There are several situations where children are being pushed to work. They are being abused. So I would like to speak to all the three speakers one after another, starting with Mr. Prabir Basu about understanding the situation of children across the country during this last 3 months time. Mr. Prabir Basu, could you please start your deliberation?
Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, I must extend my wholehearted thanks to the organizer for Change Talks, who has organized this kind of online program. And this is the perfect time, I think, to have a really this kind of discussion. And also, I thank Manoj for putting me in the speaker's post. So thank you very much. Now, regarding the situation of the children in this COVID-19 pandemic situation. First of all, I would like to just remind to our audiences that we have a kind of impression that children are not directly affected by this COVID-19 or the coronavirus. But however, if there is hunger, if there is malnourishment, then immunity will go down, and automatically the children will fall prey in this epidemic. Besides, during the lockdown situation, children actually have been experiencing a lot of vulnerabilities, and those vulnerabilities are all connected to the socio-economic condition of their families, because children do not live in isolation. They are in the families. So whatever the families is suffering from, it is also the children who are suffering the most. And millions of children, millions of children from migrant families, casual laborers, wage earners have gone hungry. And they have shared the burden while they have trudged way back home. Either with the family sharing the burden of the whatever belonging they had to carry with. And the story of death of a 4.5-year of a child at Muzaffarpur railway station, as you all know, when the father was frantically searching for some milk, is indeed very sad story. In the same railway station on the same day, there was another 2-year-old boy who was trying to wake up his mother, who was already dead. And the 35-year-old woman who actually died out of dehydration, and he left her son to us, to all of us who can extend our cares to this child. I don't know what happens to this happened to these children afterwards. But you must be all very shocked, and we of course are really shocked by a story of a girl called Jamalo Magdan, who was actually walking back to her home from Telangana to Chhattisgarh, and she was working in a chili farm, as a child laborer, and she had no other alternative but to walk down to her home, 1,000 kilometers, and it is so sad that she was seized to death, and just few kilometers were left to reach her hometown, home village. Children face this predicament due to COVID-19, and there are numerous stories we all have witnessed. The plight of these hundreds and thousands of child laborers who were trafficked as forced labor away from their families, trapped in their workplaces like sweet shops, bangle making, embroidery, garments. And what I am telling you, all from our experiences, because we have been working with these children, garment industry, textile, and the production of shoes, children in brick kilns, agriculture work, and in many other hazardous work they were engaged with. And after the lockdown, it was really pathetic that they were left to fend for themselves by their employer without any food, without any water, without any care and security to these children. Child labor is as you know, the child labor is the worst affected in this scenario, who have been usually employed uh, not only illegally, but also without their family members. They were just left to alone. This had resulted in many more anxiety and despair among the children, uh, abandoned by their employers after the lockdown. Child labor is as you all know, that child labor is really a human rights problem, and it should have been metaphor by now. However, it looks a long battle to continue. It is evident it is a multidisciplinary, multifaceted, and multi-sectoral issue, as we all know, involving practices that violate children's human rights both directly in the form of slavery, and more commonly indirectly as a compulsory labor that results in denial of their right to education.
Okay. So like to move on to Professor Prashant Kumar Ghosh. Sir, the point is, these are some of the situations which Mr. Basu has highlighted, how these children are getting into trouble and what are the circumstances that push them into difficult circumstances. So in this situation, while the professional social workers are resuming their work, they are going back to their fields, and can you just explain about how these professional social workers, they should get ready, they should understand the ground realities, what are the preparatory they should keep in mind while going back to their work and resuming their work in the field. Over to you, Professor Ghosh.
Thank you, organizers, for giving me this opportunity to share with you some of the experiences I have working with the children. So far, I remember, I think way back in 2000.
Just to interrupt you, Professor Ghosh, your
Your
sound
voice
is
is,
very,
yeah,
very less, very low. So could you take a headphone
microphone closer, yeah.
or the phone just near to your mic?
Okay, it's not still. Am I audible now?
Yeah, you are audible, but your sound is pretty low.
Just a minute. I will take a
Yeah.
minute. You can take. I will just open it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Professor
yeah.
Ghosh comes in. I'd like to go back to Dr. Rajdeep Singh. Good evening, and this is um, uh, uh, good discussion has started with Mr. Basu's points. So what I would like to ask you, Dr. Rajdeep Singh, about the child labor situation, was what was Mr. Basu was referring, and it's not only child labor; it's the pattern of livelihood has changed across the country during this lockdown period, and there are millions of migrant workers who have walked on the way, who have taken train or buses or any other mode of transport to go back to their home. So, in this circumstance, how do you see the situation about the migrant laborers and those who have lost their livelihood and its impact on the lives of the children?
So to start with, I really like to thank organizer to invite me in this panel, and also already Mr. Basu raised the floor, and I what I'm planning to do in my short talk is that I prepare a small PPT. So I will follow that because I thought I was attending previously few talks online, and I find that the PPT the audience can follow my talks in a structured manner, right? So
Certainly.
yes,
Yes,
so
please.
I'll just use my PPT, and then any question certainly I'll try to answer, but in my limited capacity. So I will share my
Yes,
uh,
Dr. Shingo, you can share directly from your lab.
okay. Just give me 1 minute. I'll just
Sure.
I think is it visible?
Yes, yes, yes. Just make the screen a little bigger, then everybody can watch it up.
Is it fine? Yeah.
Uh,
Now.
Yeah, it is fine, Dr. Shingo.
yes, yes, please.
So, as what I'll do, I'll just quickly set the background. What that context I'm talking about. So, as you all know, that in ILO different convention, they propose that human mobility is a key factor for sustainable development. Though there that time in 2013 they are talking about Millennium Development Goals, but still they were actually talking about sustainable development goal. And the key point in here is that all the migrant workers, those who are in different parts of the country or even outside country, they all are looking, they are looking for a avenue for a decent work. And you know that a sustainable development goal, one of the key component is the decent work. And what they are looking for, the fair share of their prosperity they have created. I think that's a very important point, which many time many authors repeatedly focus on that. You have to say the whatever fruits of your development, it is not distributed, and that is why you have lots of inequality in our society. Very interestingly, the SBI this monthly report, there is a figure which is coming out is like 58 lakhs migrant 58 lakhs migrants have gone back their home, and which is prominent states are UP, Bihar, Jharkhand, Odisha, and our West Bengal. So then another very, I think there are I'm looking for the macro data. Sir already talked about the individual case studies what happened to different workers around our country. But I was quickly just want to highlight some of the macro figures, which is this is a very interesting study. This is third report. They actually published two reports. This is a third report. You can see that the condition of this migrant worker, those who are they left their village and working and producing the huge wealth which is created by different things. So 63% people at the time of this is the last week of last month. So time of that survey, they have 100 rupees left, and 57% called this SOS number. They create a number where they have no money left or they have skipped their previous meal. 57% workers stuck in the place lockdown are announced. Only that. So what I'm referring previously, 58 lakh, it is only the 33% of the total volume. And 50 and then and those who are stuck in this place, 55% are want to go immediately home. 75% are stuck in the place where migrant worker and they don't have any employment. So yeah, I think go on. I think readers audience can read this whole PPT. So the main point is, so what they are in a miserable condition. For, and most of them is different government promise different things, but you can see that data is suggesting 85% of them paid their travel from their own pocket, and which is not a small amount. Is two-thirds of them paid more than 1,000 rupees. Where I'm talking about, they don't have even 100 rupees, and they have to pay 1,000 rupees from their pocket for this travel. And you can see that what is the condition is happening. You will see after post COVID also that 80% already have taken loan, which is 8,000 on an average, which, and it can lead to a different kind of consequences, bonded labor and many other things. The future is, I think, it's going that way. So I think it summarized some of the sense. Though it's a small study, but I think it gives a overall sense of my
This gives an understanding of the overall scenario
overall
of
scenario of the India, how things are moving.
yes.
And also, I just quickly, I don't want to spend much of the time, but
No,
still,
it's fine. It's fine. Carry on, please. Yeah.
it is also talking about, if you see the CMI Center for Monitoring Indian Economy data, if you read December or November newspapers and others, they are talking about the figure which is saying that unemployment rate is highest in the last 45 years, which is they are talking about around 6.1%. In CMI March, it is 8.7%. March, it is 8.8, and coming to the end of this March, it will almost touch for 24%. Okay? So when you are talking about 6 is a 45 years high unemployment rate, now we are talking about 4 times of that unemployment. And that's the magnitude of the problem we have to deal. And I am sure all of you understand it's not easy job to any. I'll come to the end and I will discuss about that. So coming to the point, now I want to link with this situation, broader macro picture with the child labor scenario. Even recent report is suggesting whatever we have done, positive things in the line of getting child labor, it's now gone. So if we went back to the 2000 scenario, the 2000, what is the figure of child labor is coming. In terms of poverty, we went back to this wider working paper one suggesting that we went back to 30 years. So 3 months, the effect of this COVID is that we went back to 30 years. So the poverty level we are 30 years back is now. Right, and very interestingly, another studies again, even studies suggesting that 1% increase in poverty it increased 0.7% of the child labor. So
yes, and it has I mean direct impact on the GDP of the country. I
right.
Also understand it.
Right. So
yes.
So that is I think this PPT I think it's clear that what is the situation of child labor in country, and it is also talking about the whole world and the few pockets of the world, including all Southeast Asia and African countries, are the worst sufferer of this kind of situation. So why these things are happening? I think these facts are well known, but let me reiterate for a minute. It's that one, since the parents, the opportunity in labor market for parents are gone, and that is why their parents are also looking towards their children, and they're maximizing their income by increasing the number of working members. Number of working members, irrespective of gender, age, and all, they just want to increase earning members so that they can have some little more money in their hand. And then also, if you link with the migration and remittance are declined and migration, situation. So it's actually happening reverse migration. Lot of studies are suggesting that these guys are not taking money. These migrant workers are taking money from home instead of sending money to home. Instead of sending money to home, they are taking money from their home, and then whatever 1 month, 2 months they survive in their place is because of that help they got from their family members back home. They are also not in a good situation because that what happened to our agriculture, right? So I'll try to. That is my last point. And before that, I think closed classroom have implications. A lot of recent newspaper articles are the India is divided in terms of technology. Some the students are lucky, like one of my son, who is lucky to have a laptop or something, able to join online teaching. But there are large section of population. There is a suicide in Bali or Howrah last week or sometime because of the mobile phone and not able to join classes. So this division is there. Plus, I think closed classroom also have implication in terms of nutrition security. I think all have to remember what is the logic of this midday meal and all those things. Midday meals are introduced to provide nutrition security. One second, bringing the children to the school. Now, since the midday meal and these nutritions are gone, and I understand they are providing rations in monthly basis or something, but who is eating that rice or thing? That is another concern. And lastly, I think there are many people, and that is my understanding also. Before this COVID, agriculture was injurious for health of the lot of farmers. So farmers are doing agriculture, but their benefit out of this agriculture is very little. Now, since they have no money, and this coming season is the male cultivation seasons are coming up, and without money, I think not only now it will have a huge implication, and there is a link, that the agriculture and child labor is the correlation is very significant. So now, my last part of my talk is what I'm trying to focus, that what are the policy framework we can think of given this huge magnitude of the problem we have to handle. So quickly, I think social protection is one, and I'm not talking about targeted. I'm obviously talking about universal social protection schemes, then guaranteed credit. I will quickly go through. If any question comes, I'll be happy to answer this question. And ensure, I think when you Chairman sir asked about this, what to do, and now social worker coming back. I think one big problem they have to address is that how to bring back these children to their school, because otherwise it will lead to a permanent dropout of those children. That's a big job. Once the school open, I think you have to ensure that there may be door-to-door campaign, something you have to do so that we can bring back those children. Otherwise, it lead to a permanent dropout. Instead of thinking a new policy, I think there are many good-looking, nice paper policies in our place. I think it's a time for implementation those policies too quickly in some context of labor market and to focus. One is obviously, Sen Gupta Committee report of National Commission for Enterprise Unorganized Sector, because these are the guys are most affected. So if you read this commission report, it is clearly guideline what are the kind of social security scheme we can introduce with a minimum cost. And second, another interesting and important, and India is a signatory to that, is called International Convention for Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. I will just quickly point out what are the things why I'm talking this economic, social and cultural rights here, and India is signatory, because if you read some of the articles, you can see the right to work, right to health, right to education, protection of family, mother, children, and young person. These all are part of this whole convention, and India is signatory those, and it's a time for high time for us to implement and implement what is promised. Coming to my end, just quickly, what is happening then? These guys are coming back as a large migrant, and I am sure if you talk to your neighbor, when I'm talking to my mothers and other family member and all, there is a social stigma attached to this migrant work. It is very commonly tagged them that these guys are coming back with corona, and it is spreading in different states because of these migrant workers are coming back. But there is a huge problem when you argue like this, and I think we have to deal with this stigma also, that now this migrant worker are stigmatized. They like many occupations now, migrant worker also have some kind of social stigma to right now. But when they're coming back, you see the very interesting data. Just morning I was going through this NRGA website and find if you compare 2019 and 20, April and May, and the total person demanded work, you can see there is a significance. If you compare May, last year it's a lakhs. Last year total demand in West Bengal was 10 lakhs. Now it's almost 3.5-fold increase. Why this increase is because I think that now it's proven that the majority of rural population, Manrega is the last resort. When they are not able to do anything anywhere, they are banking on one of the important social policies, which is Manrega. But what happened to Monrega also we have to understand. I think it is a time to we have to course correction is needed. Recently, you know that Monrega is dealing with minimum wage act. So many states in India, what they are getting in Monrega wage is lower than state agriculture minimum wage. That's a huge problem. Now the large portion when are thinking we will increase the Manrega funding and wage and number of days and whatnot. But we have to also think that are these guys are getting minimum wage or not? That is the minimum we can offer to them. And also we have to think, and it's a high time to think that state-wise what policies, employment policy related to this migrant workers. And lastly, I think it is not only rural, there is a population in urban also in distress, because these are, if you think of the street vendors and urban vendors and all those things, they are huge number and they're also significantly suffer. So it's a high time, according to it is not only my proposition, there are many economists like Convergence and others also proposed that that urban, we have a high time to think of the employment guarantee program in the urban area. Now I want to just one point which we sign up, and then is there convergence point what we can do, we can easily blame government, state or central, but I think here it reminds me in a that there is a very beautiful documentary by P. Sainath on the Nero's guest. So Nero is a Roman emperor, and who actually offered one of the biggest party in Rome. Now it's an evening party, beautiful garden, but Nero's biggest problem was that how he will light this whole party. So what he did, he brought all the prisoners and put one by one into the fire light. So they are throwing these prisoners in fire, and that fire people are enjoying their meals, drinks, and whatnot. Now the P-Signer asks this very simple question. I can understand that Nero is a king who is authoritarian, who is not doing his job, but who are these guests who are enjoying this meal in the light of this kind of light? So I think all of us, if you all if we don't do anything, we'll eventually become Nero's guests. We can blame government, but we have to do our part of it. Thank you. I think I'm. Hello.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Shingo, for this well-articulated presentation and deliberation of the situation of.
Dr. Shingo, if you could kindly off your screen share.
Yeah. Yes. So this is absolutely a great presentation of explaining about the situation of migrant laborers and subsequent situation that has arisen of the lockdown and its effect on the economy and on the children. So I'll now go back to Professor about understanding of the situation where the professional social workers are resuming their work, they are going back to the fields. So these are the circumstances prevailing in the field at this moment. So what are the kind of preparation that they should keep in mind? They should get themselves prepared before going back to the fields. Professor Ghosh.
Thank you, Manoj. Thanks to all of you for your nice presentation and inviting me to this lecture series webinar on the situation of children's rights of citizens. Mr. Basu has already out few things, the basics, how the children are suffering, and what could be done to help them. Now, as a social work professional, we have a lot of role to play. As far as the data says, according to the media reports, that child abuse and domestic violence are on the rise. The reason of rise of domestic violence and child abuse during the lockdown period is touched upon. There are many, many reasons that have come out. One is longer stay at home, no work, the tensions, anxiety, and
Yeah.
different other social and economic issues as well as
Mr.
cultural.
Ghosh, could you please take your microphone close to your mouth? I mean, your voice is, yeah, yes, yes.
Every time my voice is not reaching. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yes, right.
Is it okay? Okay.
Yes, yes,
So,
yes.
so there has been a report of in just between in March 20 to 21st. I think lockdown period was only 1 week then. Lockdown started from 24th of March, 25th of March, and within this week there falls to child line. That is one of the data I read from one of the media, and then it comes from then from PTI calls that says that during the month of March, National Commission for Women recorded 315 cases of domestic violence. So these are very few, I think, because the way the infrastructure we have to reach out to the National Commission for Women, especially 70% of the people living in rural areas and having access to media and communication media, rather, to reach out the National Commission, most of the cases are unreported and not reported. And sometimes the family doesn't want to report it. So that is and another picture that has come up during this period of lockdown that concerns everybody, the individual, the family, the professional, and others. Now, as asked by Manoj, I was prepared to speak on the issues of child rights and the role of social worker in this situation. The first right that is given under the UN Convention is right to live with family. Now, during this lockdown period, all are living with family. But why there is a abuse, more and more abuse while they are in the family, which is not happening when they are going to school or spending time elsewhere, going for coaching or something, which is not. So there is a contradiction between the policies or the rights as well as the situation, prevailing situation, especially in a country like ours. Because most of the children live in. I had the opportunity of studying the conditions of the children in the beginning of the century, between 2000 and 2001, for Siniasa specifically, where we studied the conditions in 2000, plight of the children of the sex workers in some of the red light areas in Kolkata, and we just termed it as a quest for the wrecked childhood. It's nothing other than because the way the children are, of course, they are being coached, they are being educated, their health is being taken care of. All the basic rights the city is trying to protect with this. This is the situation 20 years ago. And another 20 years, we see the pandemic situation and the plight of the children. If we look at the right to healthcare, one of the most important healthcare systems for the children that begins with the ICDS centers, prenatal, postnatal care, nutrition, supplementary nutrition, all these six services, including the referral, that is there. But how many of our children who are in need of these services are availing of these services? We conducted a study in the surrounding villages with the social workers placed in these in villages, and we found that majority of the people are reluctant to send their children to ICDS centers. This is what. And when we talk about education, as my previous presenter, Dr. Razi, was referring to children in school, the midday provided to the children to take care of the supplement nutrition and to keep them in school rather than preventing child labor. That was also an issue that was considered, and now the ration being distributed to them. But how many? What is the basic criteria of education? How do you like to upbring the children with right kind of education that helps them? I'm reminded of a quote 100 years ago while Tagore was writing on the problem of education. I think that was the problem of education. He says that the problem of our education in our country is that what we teach in school and what we practice at home, there is a total disconnect. And that's why the children, I would be taking, because these are the issues of rights of to the children, the, the practice they see and the lessons they learn is not, is contradicting rather. This is one. Second, value-based education that is on the decline. School education, which we have experienced 40 years ago, 1980, and now in 2020, after 40 years, has changed a sea, gone a sea change, I should say, because all those texts and things which used to build up the students, because one of the rights of the children is to get a quality education. What is the quality of education? The quality of education definitely refers to a person who can connect their life and livelihood, learning from school to the higher education, colleges and universities. That is what is not happening. We are trying to produce more and more white collar people rather than this direct or skill based economy. We are not having. That is also one of the findings of the National Commission of National Skill Development Corporation, that we have a huge mismatch. Now we are talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat. Atmanirbhar Bharat will come only when we have that kind of skill to produce all those items that we need for our livelihood. We should not be dependent on other countries to supply the things. So if we want to bring these things, we have to focus our education from the primary to secondary, secondary to higher education, and link it up to vocational kind of education, professional kind of education, which will really contribute to the national economy, as my previous president was
Okay.
talking about.
Thank you, Professor Ghosh. To start with your points, and it's very valuable points, like looking at the quality of education and the issues related to the children. I think these are very valuable points. So I'll come back to you. I'll now go back to Mr. Pravir Basu once again to understand the situation of children in terms of accessing the online education, which is a countrywide debate now, how far children are able to access the digital mode of education. And there are several publications, there are several discussions going on across the country. Mr. Focus on this issue about accessing online education and the digital distancing that has created another level of discrimination among the population. Mr. Vasu, please, your microphone is muted.
Mr. Basu, you are muted. Could you please unmute yourself before? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Am I audible now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So what you rightly pointed out this digitalization of education. I'm quite not sure about how far this digitalization practically has started. It has started. It has really initiated in the private schools, as far as my knowledge goes. But in the government schools, it is whatever initiatives have been taken from a distance to bring children in the education scenario. It is all WhatsApp business, and it is not digitalization. However, even in that also, I should say that this really being calling for a digital divide. There are discrimination between the haves and have-nots, because there is a evidence from the field itself, because we have done from CACL, Campaign Against Child Labor, and RT Forum in West Bengal, a rapid assessment study of the children during the lockdown situation. And in that, it has very prominently it has been revealed that hardly 20% of the children could really access the digital, whatever digital initiatives have been taken so far. They have been able to access, and there have plenty of examples of already Dr. Shingho has also referred to one girl who has really committed suicide due to this, because not accessing the digital platform due to
There are several such instances across the
instance.
country. Yeah.
And the students who enjoy this system even are not happy due to the technical difficulties that might cause them the mental stress, and expressed fear to stay enrolled in the school. There will be a significant dropout because of this. I apprehend that this crisis might lead to the surge of child labor, even surge of child marriages, in case of the girl children especially, who are not being able to access this digital facility. So this is what I, in brief, my apprehension goes like this. And the
And
whole
what are the impacts that you are apprehending from this from on the children? What are the major impacts?
Yes, this is what I said, that the children are there will be children who actually will be suffering. Children who are actually accessing, they are also suffering from mental stress. They are not being able to cope up with this kind of online education system, because all this teaching scenario, it has really shifted from the live classroom to the online business, and which is not actually is a classroom business, because you all know that classroom is a, there is a different ecology of the classroom, and children are really missing that ecology. And when they are missing, because they are not quite aware of the fact that why they are being subjected to this kind of discrimination and all, because they are not quite aware of the all the implications being fallen on them. But however, they are quite aware of the fact that they are missing something which they would have enjoyed in their classrooms. So this is not the kind of education which we have been looking forward to. And this is in the name of quality education, in the name of continuing education, and etc etc. The especially the private schools and now the government schools and MHRD also is really advancing on this, that they are this digital education, digitalization of education is going to mainstay in the or the in the mainstream. So that is where we have a huge apprehension about the children's rights, because this also actually violate the children's fundamental right of education, because this is because our fundamental right says there has to be a free and compulsory education for all children. And now we see through the digital education there is a huge divide, and there is a huge exclusion, and have nots are really deprived. They are really being excluded from the process. So that's where the discrimination lies.
Okay. Going back to Dr. Singho, I mean, what is your apprehension about the escalation in the
And just
number of?
Mr.
Yeah, sorry.
Manoj,
Yeah, yeah,
I
please.
just want to add
Yes,
one
yes,
more
please,
point.
please.
I think the digital education can only help the teachers platform. You know, the teachers agencies are not being brought forward to in the midst of in amid the lockdown situation, because it's all education minister, bureaucrats, netas, and people like ours. We all are voicing against or for the digital education system, but it is there, we never see the teachers in the scenario. So I feel the teachers agency should be brought into the scenario, and they should be given enough adequate opportunity to speak on this, because the I think it should be it should only can help the teachers forum to have a continue, because it will help, online education will help them to update their knowledge, update their understanding about the overall scenario, whether it is a nationalist education or it's a kind of, I mean, education which needs to be, as Professor Prashanto Bhattacharya was mentioning,
Ghosh, yeah.
sorry, Ghosh was referring to, that it should have a connect with the life of the children, and when it can really connect the life, then the quality will automatically will be gained, and it can be realized. So teachers agencies should be brought into it. So that's how digital
Fine.
education cannot help the children. Otherwise it can help only the teachers, I feel.
Okay. So and now get back to Dr. Asdeep Singh. Could you please explain about your apprehension about the escalation in the number of child laborers, which is very practical at these circumstances, and what are the issues to be taken care of by like us or those who are in fields while going back to school? How do you apprehend the situation?
The, first of all, I think in terms of, in the context of child labor and whatever field, and you know that I'm based in Guwahati, and so so I have little experience on the field in Northeast also, and and then there is a division, a divide between plain and hill. Obviously, hills, the children in the hills have a lot of difficulty to access in a normal condition to access to. So if you think in terms of their access to a household, which in terms of access to school, bank, and all, already they are really challenged from the different perspectives. Now, given this situation, I think it will increase manyfold in terms of the problem. The plane, as already Mr. Basu already point out, and I think in also being a teacher, I'm not trained to teach in online. Also, that's my problem, that I'm not able to engage my student in class, though I teach a adult student. So think of the problem who are teaching as a small kids, and how they will handle the situation is very difficult. Plus, you have whatever digital divide and all those things are talking about. So in a way, what will happen, and what happened in many times, you know, and you have small incident around world. Ebola outbreak, what happened to child labor situation in, the different part, maybe a case study for us, and in a different higher magnitude. So if you look studies which are suggested, and there's an increase in that, increase in significant increase in child labor when there are Ebola or a similar kind of situation, or economic crisis in 2008 and 9, and child labor. So there are a lot of case studies. We can actually, this is time to go back and see that how we can understand, or what lessons we can draw from the time of crisis, and crisis and its thing. And I think, and rural, though we are talking about the rural populations are less hit by this thing, but eventually, that it's a demand driven economy and all. So even if nothing is happening in urban centers, I think there is, maybe short run they will able to survive, but in long run, or at least in midterm, they'll not able to survive. The economy, rural economy, will not able to survive. And when it will not able to survive from the traditional method, then of course they will bank on what. And one of the important is that what Professor Ghosh also suggested. You find a lot of social problems: child labor, domestic violence, and bonded labor, and all sorts of things. I'm sure it will increase, and the only way to protect, as I point out earlier, that what I strongly believe is there is a it's a public sector involvement, social security in a universal manner. So targeted or small half-hearted approach will never, I don't think will able to come out from this kind of problem. There is a need for government intervention in a systematic manner, effective manner, but also there is a huge role for these non-government organizations, which can play a significant role in terms of implementation, or effective increase the
Right.
effectiveness.
You are very right. I mean, going back to Professor Pushanta Ghosh, Mr. Professor Ghosh, this situation has affected the rural economy to a higher level compared to the urban economy. There's a lot of occupational change. There are a lot of change in the pattern of the livelihood, the pattern of the lifestyles. Everything has changed during the last 3 months, and children have been pushed into some kind of work with their parents or outside their houses, into bricklanes or into bidi rolling or into some other kind of occupations. So how do you see the situation in the rural aspects, in West Bengal and other parts of the country, and when we are going back to the field, how do we deal with this situation? Because we have to make the people understand about the realities that the children are likely to face or already have been facing out of this situation. So how do we make the people understand the situation, and what would be our role? I mean, can you please explain that? Mr. Ghosh, you are not audible. Professor Ghosh, we cannot hear you.
Hear me now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Can you? Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
actually.
as far as this uh, situation due to COVID-19 and lockdown, the role of social workers is going to change a lot. As far as the social work practice is concerned, when you go for field work or practice or even any service delivery to the people in the rural communities, because we mainly work with the rural communities here. Our focus is also rural and ecological. So the role that we were playing till now, advocate as an advocate, advocacy on behalf of the client, will continue to do that. For example, our students and present students have formed a group, a WhatsApp group, Fight Against COVID-19. And they are communicating not only in the area, in the locality, but at the national level, that people who are stuck in Chennai, Mumbai, and other places, how the help and assistance could be availed by them through the concern to the government that where they are living. That is the kind of work they did, and they did this advocacy. This is one. Second, the coordination that is also done along with that. Educating people. I know when we go back to the communities, the first issue, challenge is that whether the community will accept an outsider who may bring in COVID, or person suffering in the community may infect the person's workers. So anything can happen as the health professional, as other professional colleagues and others getting impacted through this. So there is a stigma attached both the service provider and the service recipient. So how do we deal with the situation? As far as children is concerned, most of our students at the UG and PG first year and second year, they are to deal with the children. Individual cases like dropouts, individual cases those who have problem of maladjustment in the family, or children's group activities. Now, group activity, putting them together is a matter of social distance or closeness. That is what is to be prevented under these circumstances. So we have to change our strategy to put them, though people are saying social distancing. I have some reservation in calling social. We can say physical distancing. That is required. That is required at the moment. So how would you organize our and individuals in the communities, and what would be the response of the communities towards the social workers visit? So we have divided into three parts. One is the promotive function, another is preventive functions as we do in social work, and most importantly, the responsive one, responsive functions of social workers under the situation, under the prevailing situation, and how can we bring back the children to the school when it is reopened? That is a question that has been raised by one of our presenters, that whether there is likely to be more and more dropouts. For example, majority of our students do dropouts in fifth and sixth standard. Why? Because in primary education, the level of their learning is because they do not have examination, they do not have anything, they pass on every year. When they go to fifth and sixth, they are not able to adapt themselves to the learning environment at fifth level. So that is the reason for dropout. Now COVID will bring more and more dropout. How to respond to this situation is parent counseling, the involvement of the teachers and parents in bringing back the so that would be our response to the situation. Similarly, for preventing functions, we have to identify the needs. We have to identify the children, those who are really vulnerable and not likely to come back because they are child labor. Now, another important thing, I think Rajvi would be able to make more comments on this as he was referring to child labor and agriculture. Because in agriculture, child labor going to work with their parents are not considered child labor, but they work as child. But this is also a learning. Now, what's the conflicting? Whether they are learning agricultural operation, agriculture farm production system, or they are becoming a child labor along with the parents. That was the question. Although the National Commission on Child Labor Elimination, for whom we are also working in Seniketan and Bhim district, normally identifies this child labor and then they are, so how do we respond to this restoration? I think elimination of child labor, end child labor by 2025 would be a dream then, because under this situation, when we are looking at more and more income with the family, the children of the poor families are likely to be the victims of these circumstances by joining the stream of child labor. So that is also another issue. So um, um, how do we respond to these challenges that we are facing at the moment to provide the panic situation in which the children, aged, the younger generation, and people who have little knowledge about this disease and the facilities available, treatment, and other protocols to maintain, we have a bigger role to take these messages as our this fight against COVID group is taking this in the vernacular local language to the people and educating them. I think is most important thing that we should go with to begin our field work. If it is because though MHRD has already said that the schools and colleges would be remain closed till July, July end, and it will think over whether it will be open in August or not, depending on the situation and the rate in which the virus is infecting and um, increasing number of patients every day. It's very difficult to predict what will happen in July and August. So we are planning how to conduct examination, how to, because the terminating years are very concerned. This is at the higher education. And at the school level also, they have the similar, because many of the examinations are not. So social workers' role basically in responding to this COVID situation should be more and more innovative in the sense that what is the basis? Say, for example, we used to work with the key persons, the panchayat leaders, the elders, but nowadays very few people are available. Now the office has opened and they are working on speech, some are working on 3 days and 2 days, and connecting them, educating them, taking the message to them, and bringing the services to the people, to the children, especially those who are in distress, is becoming really challenge to the social workers.
Yes, you are very right. You are very right. I think it's a time now for to rebuilding the communities, because after this 3 months of lockdown, there's a need for a community rebuilding process with keeping the children at the center of development. If we can think of some innovative strategies or ideas that can help us rebuild the community, since West Bengal has witnessed two difficult circumstances. One is about the COVID-19, and subsequently the Amphan super cyclone. So these two things have destructed the entire state, and in these circumstances, I'll just go back to Mr. Pravir Basu once again to understand about how you were rebuilding the communities, keeping children at the center of development, ensuring their rights, keeping the families together, minimizing the vulnerabilities of children. What are your thoughts? I'll come back to all three of you with the same questions. I'll just start with Mr. Basu, please.
Yeah. So to respond to your question about the community rebuilding process, what I would like to refer to Professor Prashanto Ghosh, and I feel that we all, especially the social workers and the ground level workers, activists, and everybody, has to reach out to the community as closely as possible, and uh, if it is say if it is the issue of education or issue of their dropout from the school when the school reopens, or the COVID-19 situation when the school reopens, how many children are really prepared, I mean their parents are prepared to send back their children to school, or if not they are sending back, then what are the kind of reasons? And what I felt is that there may be some criteria at present uh, to assess the vulnerability of the children and their families, and putting them in some grades like say red, yellow, and green. So the green zone may be the confident enough to get back to the schools, but the red and orange zone orange zone may be confused in a confused state, and the red zone have really maybe showing the uh, I mean significant symptoms of not sending back their children, and they're prepared to sending back I mean sending their children to some work or some other works. So in that case our duty will be to closely work with those families of the red zone and orange zone to convert them into green zone at the earliest. I mean, and that whole techniques, I mean that whole our experience of education, the value of education, actually what does education mean for their life, and how it is being practical to think of sending back their children to school. And now the school is free, it's not that it will involve any kind of cost. So we'll have to at the same time we'll have to work with the government also to really be more focused on implementing strictly the laws which are in place now at the moment. And there are many
Could you
laws.
please refer some of those which are very important in terms of ensuring the rights of the children?
See,
Some of
India,
the
as I am
yeah.
not going back to the 1966
No,
International
in
Covenant
the
on
current
Economic.
scenario, in the
In the
change in
current,
the
yeah, in the
yes,
current scenario, as you all know, that India has already ratified the UNCRC, United Nations Child Rights Convention,
and
ILO
we have
Convention,
completed 30 years of it.
30 years of it, and ILO Convention 182 and 138, which is the worst form of child labor,
Right.
and the minimum age of employment. Then the Indian Constitution accords rights of the children, which Constitution actually guarantees for these kind of children who are very much uh, doubtful about their education, going back to education, especially in the age group of 6 to 14, like Article 21A, a right to be protected, and also the a right to be protected from any hazardous employment, Article 24, right to be protected from being abused and forced economic exploitation, which is Article 39, subsection E. And then in 2016, Government of India has amended the I mean the Child Labor Act, which is Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act 1976. In the 2016, they have in the name of Child and Adolescent Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act, which actually is a good amendment. Otherwise, because it's really prevent the children from being employed in any kind of hazardous sector, but it has indeed an apprehension is there. The employment of children in family enterprises and in the entertainment industries as child artists without any robust mechanism for regular monitoring might lead these children to get involved in the hazardous kind of works. So it's true perhaps that many things have occurred at both national and international levels in areas of judicial transformation, constitutional amendment, legal framework, appreciating media, proactive legislatives and parliamentarians, and above all, the strong civil society spokespersons. All these have really happened. But even in spite of this, all these things, still the child labor exists, and we now have a commitment to end child labor by 2025 as per the SDG goal, as we all know.
Yes.
And so, according to the last census, there are 10 million, 2011 census, there are around 10 million child laborers in the country. And though the assessing this number is really become difficult, because statistics of the volume of child labor is still a matter of dispute, as different agencies report different figures varying between 44 million to 115 million. And very recently, in a writ petition of Bachpan Bachao Andolan in Supreme Court, that has really expressed that there are 200 million child laborers in our country at the moment, and we are expecting more child laborers in the days to come. So it's a
So far as there's no, I think there's no census has been done to enumerate the exact number of child laborers
number of child labor. So
in the country.
That's a huge problem.
Yes, yes. Yes, please carry on. Please carry on.
And so what my point is, I want to make my point here that now it is the time when I think strict implementation of the law by the government has to take place, and we all will have to, while working with the community, we'll also have to work with the government, engage with the government, and indeed we'll have to be engaged to make them obligated under the United Nations Child Rights Convention, the Constitution of India, Juvenile Justice Act, Child Labor Act, and the RTE Act, most importantly. So we have to really have to engage with the government to make them really obligated towards implementing these laws so strictly. And this is the time when government should implement these acts very strictly. They should not be apathetic about it. And that's my point.
Okay. Coming back to Dr. Rajdeep Singho, do you feel that in continuing with Mr. Basu's points, do you think that there's a need for reassessing of the community in terms of the situation of the children, the situation of the families, the vulnerabilities that the children are facing? Do you think that there's a need for reassessment of the community, since there's been a lot of change during these last 3 months? Do you feel that?
My sense is that I think it requires more detailed field work and like that. But I think what currently situation what we have done is that the resources which are traditionally or previously available to these households are now gone. Be it your livelihood, job, or any other sources of the thing. I briefly talk about the future of agriculture because of this whole process and things. So now, and that I think that leads to answer your question is that then it requires some amount of re-looking to that. What are the sources from where they can derive this kind of resources? Is there alternatives? As Mr. Basu point out that maybe government is one source where we can look and try to engage with government and try to extract as much as possible for this community, and also we have to rethink innovative way that how we can create, quote unquote, create a new avenues where we can bank on for this kind of resources. And also I think coming to this again continue to Mr. Basu's point, since last 6-7 years I'm in Assam, so for example, I mean same story I think in Duars also, that what happened to the tea garden? You have adults in labor, right, and they're legal. and illegal. And so that also I think you have to relook that when you're talking about child labor, and it's there are in a way it's a huge chunk of labor, but those are adolescent labor, and they are prone to a lot of exploitation, economic and non-economic exploitation. So that part also wonders me sometimes that how we are looking. So we have, as all of us I think agree that we have a lot of law and things are in place. And and also if you read newspapers and others, recently we are trying to dilute, at least some state trying to dilute some of the labor laws. And also that upcoming labor codes are coming, labor laws will go and replaced by labor codes. And then you'll find one broad sense. Maybe it require a different seminar to discuss about labor codes. But one sense, what after reading this whole labor codes, I find is that they try to promote is competition among the state in terms of labor. So if this happens, then I think there is another challenge you have to face in future, because now state will compete each other in terms of that, and there are pros and cons of that, and that can create another level of problem. But to answer to specific to your question, as answer to your question, I think there is a need for new way of thinking, that what are the resource or income generating resources available for us, be it it's natural or man-made, whatever way, or how much government can play a role, and what kind of policies framework is required to uh, relive into this whole system. Otherwise, I think if you I think old weapons are now not will not be effective after this COVID. Uh,
Okay, thank you, Dr. Singho. And coming back to Professor Ghosh, considering the two points made by Mr. Basu and Dr. Rajdeep Singho, I'll just come back to you about. I think there's a big role of Panchayati Raj institution in the rebuilding process of the communities, also the urban local bodies. So, how do you see these two important delivery points? Because all the programs are now being implemented through these two important, basis of the government. One is the Panchayati Raj institution, and the other one is the urban local bodies. In terms of implementing the development programs and considering the current situation, where do you see the involvement of professional social workers in assessing the situation and accelerating these development programs for the development of the communities?
Thank you, Manoj. I think our most of the social work professionals are engaged with either PRI system under ISDP or district DRDC and other programs where the panchayat is directly involved, working at the grassroots level. But some of the experiences in implementing this democratic self-governance and that is Panchayati Raj system in India, as we have experienced in West Bengal during the last 5 years. Recently, there was I saw a statement from a person living in the rural when the ration was distributed. Uh, the people were advocating not to distribute it through panchayats, but it through police. I don't know what the reason behind it. Probably because of the corruption and the nepotism or favoritism that is shown. And so that is a political problem as well as a social problem. If we look at the four development goals, sustainable development goals, and build our communities, rebuild our communities through self-governance, whether it is Panchayati Raj, whether it is block development office or any other non-government organization. The first four sustainable development goals. So first one is no poverty, second one is zero hunger, and third one is good health, and fourth one is quality education. I think for this, the government is the major stakeholder. That is one, because government has enacted Food Security Act, National Food Security Act, and still people are dying of starvation. Now, as Mr. Basu was saying that whether government has to very strict on the implementation of the policies, rules, and regulations. Now, coming back to the role of social worker, I think there is hardly much role of social workers getting opportunity. The social workers are getting the opportunity to play, to organize the people, especially what do the people need at the moment. See, people are really frustrated and under distress. They do not know what to do and what not to do. This comes first, this comes last. So they are in a dilemma. Under these circumstances, we first need to set the attitude of the people towards their own development. If we can rebuild their attitude to development, and they would be becoming one of the stakeholders. It's not the panchayat or the government or non-government organization will provide you the support like charity, which can stop hunger for 3 months or 2 months. It's all temporary. We cannot go on feeding people for, and this is what has made most of the people dependent on the government and other institutions. Whenever we go with any kind of programs and projects, if there is no fund, so what are you going to get? What are the benefits, direct cash and material benefit they are going to get? That is the first question that is being asked. So we have one way we have spoiled the attitude of the people towards their own development by making them stakeholders in the development, partner in their own change. Now, partner in change, I think there should be contribution from the people, the recipient, the service provider, and the government. All these three put together. That's a unique kind of development initiatives I had experienced, and I had made an evaluation in Bharatpur, looking human welfare research and research foundation. That whatever they do, they will take panchayat, that is government, 33, the people who are there 33 by contributing their labor, and 33% will come from the Lupin's foundation. So that whatever infrastructure and other things that is built to provide sustainable services, that is only taken care of. So this kind of unique experiment, I think, should be referred to in rebuilding. Say, for example, the place where I am sitting now, Srinivasa, what Tagore had foreseen 100 and almost 100 years back, that to bring back life in the community by bringing back its cultural tradition and improving their cultural, social, and educational status. And that is a unique experiment where the people and their organizations were playing a major. Panchayat was not in the picture those days. British rule was in operation, but still the cooperatives, health cooperatives, credit cooperatives, consumers cooperatives, cooperative banks made a major impact on 180 villages in 1930s and 1940s, and which still can operate in our country in rebuilding the communities right from the grassroots level. I think that is what is most important role that the social workers can play in uh, facilitating, managing, coordinating, and implementing this kind of unique experiment where people take the responsibility towards their own development for their own growth. And that will ultimately um, contribute to the GDP, that will contribute to the family health as well as the economic conditions of the family, and the labor, child labor component, which is being discussed, will, will only decline. That's what I feel. And we need to be very pragmatic and strategic in implementing any government or non-government project of social work.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Ghosh. Coming back to Mr. Basu once again, once since you and your colleagues are, I mean, team members are into the fields after the Amphan and during the COVID situation. So, what has been the experiences of your team members while they had gone to the communities? What has been the repercussion that they have received from the communities, because ground realities has to be understood before going replanning for rebuilding process. So can you just explain what are the
See, we have what we have done mainly in the Sundarban areas, and after Amphan and during the COVID-19 situation, we have done something in Kolkata, slum areas, and also in Purulia. and some other districts, and all, especially after Amphan, we have been to Sundarban areas. So in all these areas, we have seen, because when we reached in district like Purulia and other districts like Murshidabad and all, so there actually during the lockdown situation, the family members have been waiting because in Murshidabad, in Purulia, there are many migrant laborers. So they have been waiting for their main earning member to come back to home. So they were actually expecting some money also to be sent to their earning member, the family member, but they could not. And as because back home they were also in a very desperate situation, and they didn't have anything to spend and anything to survive on. Only thing they have been depending on the kind of help or the kind of assistance which have been provided either by the non-government organizations or through the panchayat blocks, etc. So that was the condition, and in that COVID-19, the lockdown situation, the situation was very grim, and we could not even understand that how these children and family will survive, except the rations were not provided to them. Had it not been provided to them, how they will survive, and how they will survive after 1 week of this, once those are exhausted. So that's the condition. And coming back to Sundarban, after the Amphan situation, the situation was even worse. I mean, they have been suffering from the lockdown situation, and it was the twin problem has added to them is the cyclone effect. So they practically lost everything at their disposal as a kind of rich resource. Sorry, the kind of resources they had, they lost everything, including their house, including their everything. So they were actually practically under the sky. So in that situation, we reached out to those families in these islands, and that was terrible. That was really terrible. And how to talk about the rights of the children, rights of the human rights, etc., etc., etc. So I don't know how to narrate those things, because those situations were actually not possible to discuss all these things. Now after a few weeks, what we observe is real problem, which real issue, which now had really set in, and these issues needs to be addressed in a long-term basis, not on a short-term or medium-term, but on a long-term basis. This requires. So that's what I was suggesting, is this, that the identifying some of the families which are most vulnerable in terms of, particularly if we see from the lens of the rights of the child, rights of the children. So there could be some criteria from which we can really point out which are the families need the immediate kind of resource transfer in their names, so that they can at least pull them at the surface level, and then from there they start on to build on their future plan and etc. So that's how I look at it.
I think that is quite, good enough to understand the ground realities. And coming back to Dr. Rajdeep Singh, since you were referring about the tea gardens, the situation of children, can you just refer a little bit about the situation of children in the tea gardens? Because there are a lot of vulnerabilities associated with tea gardens among children, and also looking at the rehabilitation process of these laborers who have come back from their actual work locations, and quite a lot of them are not ready to go back to their workplace at this moment of time. Maybe they will take another 3-4 months or so to go back. So in this situation, what could be the measures that can be taken as part of highlighting the issues of child rights and taking care of the children into the tea gardens.
So I'll start with the tea garden first. If it, as I already point out, that in a normal situation, if you ignore COVID for some time, in normal situation, these children in tea garden are really vulnerable. In a way, for very simple thing is that it's remote area, right? It's far away from the any small town also. So in that sense, in geographically they're isolated. Then plus you have all those exploitation in a way that the kind of wage and all. There's a lot of literatures available in that context. But I think that's very importantly, and then though lately, but government recognized this problem and started this in school within tea garden and all. You know that this earlier it was all managed by management. So the tea management. So I think in a given context, and two things is I think very important. One, our small study in Assam suggests that these families are heavily dependent on PDS system. The ration they got from this tea estate as a part of their non-cash wage is not enough for them. Enough for them. And whatever little I have some my students who are living in different tea garden, tea estate. Sorry, not garden, tea estate in different parts of Assam and even Darjeeling also. What my little communication with them suggests that this whole system is broke down. So the supply of ration and all are for even for 2 weeks is a big problem for them. So and that has happened in during this time. So they're trying to organize and manage their own way, whatever little is possible. But a neighbor also equally vulnerable. So it's difficult. I think restoring what I understand currently from my little impression is my own student in different state is that restoration of these public services are very important. Without that, that will it happen. And you know that my hunch is that this will lead to not only child labor, it will lead to forced migration or unsafe things like say trafficking, and that's the biggest problem I think. All tea garden in Assam, West Bengal, all are facing is the trafficking, girl child trafficking, and that if correction is not done right now, I'm sure that will increase in due course, and you have to stop it as early as possible. It's a worst form of think of. And it is many times that I'm not getting into that. It is not only always that there are family member are involved or neighbor are involved and all these things are there. People are working, but trafficking. I think other than anything, I'm very skeptical about this increase in trafficking from the culture.
You are very right. I mean, human trafficking is at rise. I mean, and there are high possibilities of increase in number of human trafficking
Human
cases.
traffic.
And during this transition for the migrant laborers, while they were coming back to their home, there have been several instances where the trafficking rackets have taken the advantage of those situations, and they have misguided them to yes. And
Exactly. So I
yes,
think it's important that we keep in mind, and I think
right.
government mechanism should focus on this. That trafficking somehow we have to address this.
You are very right. I mean, coming back to Professor Ghosh, I mean, what is I think considering these two situations, what Mr. Basu has mentioned and what Dr. Shinghu has mentioned, what I feel is there's a need for collectivization of the entire process of a collective planning. So, can you just focus on some of your ideas about how to do a collectivization of the entire process of rebuilding the communities?
Uh, yes, I think this is first and foremost stakeholder, the government, the state and the central both. Then we have the beneficiary, and in between we have people who are engaged in providing these services and rebuilding the community, especially those who have lost their homes during Amphan and other. calamities. I'm reminded of Ayla, which happened in 2005,
9, 9, 9,
2009,
2009. Yeah.
2009. And I read a article, a research article, where the researcher found that after this Ayla, uh, next 3 months, there were no people available to work for rebuilding the broken ponds and water reservoirs, rebuilding roads, houses. Everybody were engaged in building their own houses. That is one. Second was that they had such amount of food, stuff, and others. They don't need to search any work for the next 3 months. Now, bringing people from other side to work to rebuild is a necessity, and sometimes it is done as we go forward to serve people in the affected areas. Now, collective action on the part of the civil society organization and the government and the people, the beneficiary, the political system of the Panchayati Raj. Panchayati Raj, government is, Panchayat is a part of the government. All the three levels of Panchayat, block, and district. I think we need to converge and plan and strategize how to help individuals. First is as Bansavas was identifying the needs individual, and needs may differ from one person to other. So how do we do that? That is one. And this should be done collectively with participation of the government, civil society organizations, and the functionaries of the non-government organizations who are working in these areas. Very important. Now, as far as collective action is concerned, sometimes in today's society, what we find, collective responsibility is nobody's responsibility. So I will say it is the government. Government will show that the civil society organization did not respond to it. And if we are to follow that bureaucratic system of operation and civil society organizations start to work, I think the work is getting delayed. This is one reason. And we are not responding to the immediate needs of the people, except that foodstuffs, charity, what we have been doing during, and this is the need of the hour, as we say, that charity is good for up to certain period. After that, we need to think of the sustainability of the programs or development issues, whether it is individual development, family development, and community development. But we need to focus on a collective actions from the government, civil society organizations, and this needs to be coordinated, collaborated, and the people who are the beneficiary will have to come up. If that is done, and if for this specific work, if there is a network, people who will just coordinate among these three stakeholders to rebuild the process, I think would be the best strategy, and implement it, monitor it, report it to the government. And if there is more and more rules and imposition of different kind of norms, then it is not going to hasten the speed of development. I think that is very important to be noted. Ultimately, what comes to the end, how and when we can rebuild these communities. As far as COVID is concerned, we are not sure because people are predicting, some are predicting that it will enhance in October and till October, it will go on till November. We don't know unless the medicine or vaccine is available in the market. As far as this natural calamity is concerned, we know what is the need. We know what is the need. And as far as this ongoing process of COVID-19 is concerned, we have to respond to the need of the hour and think of how to address to the thousands, hundreds and thousands of issues that are going to come up. So we have to be a little active as well as responsive and proactive. I think that is the need. And in this process, I think we need to collaborate, and there should be alliance organization who would keep in touch with all these stakeholders and also monitor, report, evaluate the programs and projects that are being carried on. as a part of rebuilding the community.
Okay, thank you. Since we are very close to our discussion, let's come back to Mr. Basu once again. Could you please focus on the need for a collective planning of all the civil society organizations in towards a sustainable community development at this point of time?
Uh, yeah, this reminds me, this particular point reminds me, I was in last webinar in organized by Save the Children Fund, and in that particular webinar, there was Assistant Labor Commissioner. He was in the forum. So in a conversation, I mean crosstalks, we decided to build on some idea from December onwards, as I mentioned, that the next year, 2020-21, is going to be the year of ending child labor. I mean, that year should be observed as a for the child labor only to be ended. So why not, he asked that, why not your forum and all the forums who are actually working in the area of child labor can join us with the labor department and give us some idea, and we can have a knowledge hub uh, to really find out the strategic intervention, both from, I mean, especially that will be initiated, I mean, from the front, it will be led by government only, but the civil society alongside can help government to strategize those.
So it's
So I
a
think that,
participatory. You are talking about a participatory planning and
yes,
implementation process.
yeah.
Yes,
That's the really need of that hour, because
yes,
it has to be collaborative, as Professor Ghosh was mentioning. It has to be collaborative. It has to be networking based action, and no one single person or no one single organization can do uh, something good about this at this point of time, because this is a
yes.
huge task ahead. So we'll have all have to think together. Now in the today's forum, Professor Ghosh is there, Dr. Rajiv Sinha is
Yeah.
there. So I think we all can have our ideas crossed uh, in different at different point of
Yes,
time.
and I think Change Talks has given us a platform
And
where
that's a
we
good
can,
platform.
yeah,
Yes,
where we can put in our good ideas, and not only those who are associated with development activities,
yes,
they can all put in their ideas to this platform. And this is a good opportunity that I must thank Indonil about creating this platform and
absolutely.
an opportunity for the development workers. So this is absolutely a good initiative. So we should,
Yeah,
take part in this initiative and cooperate with them in taking forward the entire agenda. So before we close, I just take 2 minutes from all three of you to listen to you the way forward after all these discussions. What is the way forward for all of us working in the development sector? Can all three of you start sharing, starting from Professor Ghosh?
Uh, the way forward is, first as I see, is we need to make a realistic assessment as to what is the need. What is the need actually? That realistic assessment is possible if we have some zonal studies conducted in collaboration with the government and non-government organizations. And that will give us an idea what are the resources we need, what are the things we need to do, what are the things that are going to be for a certain period, time-bound project, time-bound program, what are the things that could be sustained for a longer period. That kind of research and policy development is very important. That will help us in making a strategic implementation of to address the COVID and as well as the disaster situation. That is what I think the first thing we need to do. Make a realistic assessment. And let us be very clear that should not be any overlapping of services. As I was referring to,
Yes, that is very important. Overlapping of services should not be there.
services, yes. And
Yes,
sometimes what is happening, in our community, our university is doing some relief and rehabilitation work in the communities adopted. So every 2 days in a week, they bring with ration and the list of the BPL people provided by the state, SDO and BDO, which is coordinated by the panchayat, is distributed. That is what our university is doing for last 2 months, every 2 days a week, with a truck full of
Relief
rations,
material.
other relief materials, other materials they are providing, and people have come forward to donate for this project. Now, there was a complaint from one of the community that while providing this relief material, you have eliminated a certain section. Why? Then I went to find out the reason why they have been eliminated. The first reason that the Panchayat Pradesh is that these are all drunkards, they sell liquor, they do all kind of antisocial things, and that's why you have eliminated them. We don't want to serve these people. That is one good reason to eliminate someone to take these services. But
And we have almost covered up 3 months with COVID and 1 month after Amphan. So
yes,
it's not more. I mean, more focus should be given on creating or rebuilding the communities instead of pouring on
yes,
more relief materials. I
yes.
mean, what I feel are the kind of responses I'm
Our service
receiving from the communities.
make them dependent. That is true.
Yeah.
But we are not repeating the services, getting the overlapping of services because it is realistic, risk-based, and as it comes from and within the community. That is one.
Right.
Now,
So
this will end within this month. Now, what is the
okay.
way? The way forward from the university is that our rural institute, which is
Yes.
which
Yes. You are very true.
take an assessment of
Yeah.
106 villages and strategize what we can do in these villages to post
Yes.
in their
Need
content.
need based need based support.
Right,
Need based
right,
support. Right.
need-based
So,
support.
Doctor, coming back to Dr. Rajdeep Shingo, your last 2 minutes suggestion of what are the way forwards in this context of the situation that you have explained, and we all three of you have explained. What is the way forward that you?
And, for me, I think I'll echo what Professor Ghosh already point out, that I think right now, as Mr. Basu also point out, that quick assessment and also a thorough assessment to generate data to identify the problem. I think many times what we do, we confuse between symptoms and problems. Symptoms are not problem. So many times what we in a situation like this panic situation, we all tend to believe that symptoms are the problem, but I think we have to find out quickly that fever is not the problem. There is a reason behind this fever. So
Absolutely.
and for that, I think it require a quick assessment as well as a long-term assessment. And I think as a collaboration, we can continue this discussion, and we can have to look for funding and other many things, resource we have to generate to do this. Once we have this thing, I think we can plan what Professor Ghosh and Mr. Basu is pointing out, collaboration between different universities. And I, since time is short, and my last point is that also we have to learn from each other in terms of state. I'm not talking about political ideology or ideology per se, is a different story, but in a other way, different states are doing their way in their own way. I think it's a high time that we learn from each other's states. For example, I'm not very much aware of the what kind of few things I know, but not in a fully
So,
understand what
you're trying to mention about taking instances from other states about
right.
the good models or the
Right.
good practice models.
For example, in a question, somebody is asking about mental health. So
Yes.
in Assam government, they launch a helpline for the mental health, and the students in my universities and many other universities all across Assam, they are part of this. And those are trained or yet to qualify, but still they have some basic training about the counseling and all. They are using over telephone, even if, because of social distancing and all. They are not able to involve I think, but they are doing it whatever way, whatever capacity possible. They are doing it. I think I just example. I'm sure there are many good examples around different states are practicing. And it is a high time you forgetting their political and other ideologies. But I think it's a high time how we can learn from each other, and that maybe ease our life of helping those who are in. Because all we agree that the weakest and smallest of the thing, they decide the speed of the society, not the strongest.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And to before I conclude, I'll take the final call from Mr. Basu.
Yeah.
Your ideas about the collective effort that we are focusing on, and what could be the way forward at this point of time?
Just to very brief, in brief, I will definitely, I mean, in agreement with the two ideas, definitely those are the way forwards. One is the assessment, long-term assessment, and other is the collaboration at different levels, collaboration and knowledge building process. And finally, what I would just like to add with these two panelists is that because COVID-19 situation is a completely different kind of I mean different nature of a problem to us. We have never been witnessed this kind of situation earlier. So even the governments are also not in a position to really
Handle the situation.
handle the
They are not in a
situation.
position. Yes.
So there is a whole question of new normal. So what I feel is that for as I'm really concerned about the children, I would like to always say that what should be the um, new normal in the best interest of the children as per the UNCRC. That has to be really designed, really well thought of, and for that matter, we have to really do a very good homework between ourselves, and then we reach out to the government and international societies that these are the kind of new normals what could be what could be in the best interest of the children. So that's what I would like to add just as a third point in addition to the assessment, long-term assessment and collaboration. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you so much. I mean, what I feel from three of you is there is a need for collaborative effort from the civil society organizations, the academic institutions, and also from the government point of view. So there should be a collective platform where all four of us can join together, and it's a matter of facilitation of the entire process. It's not a competition. It's a matter of facilitation, making people more competent to accustomed with the situation and get advantage of the different schemes and programs of the government. It's not about competition. It's about creating opportunities for the people so that they can access the benefits. So there's a bigger role of the academic institutions like Department of Social Work, the TISS Guwahati, and like the civil society organization across the country. They have a bigger role to play in the development, and keeping children at the center of development. There are a lot of things to do, and I think this is right time to start with. And so far as Change Talks is concerned, I think this initiative can be taken forward from this platform itself to start with. And I must thank you, Indranil, for starting with this initiative. So before I hand it over to Indranil, I must thank Professor Prashant Kumar Ghosh, Dr. Rajdeep Shinghua, and Mr. Pravir Basu for joining with us in deliberating your points of view in terms of the rights of the children, the issues, the vulnerabilities in the context of COVID-19, also Amphan for particularly for West Bengal. So these are the major issues you have pointed out very rightly, and I think the way forward you have mentioned this could be a helping tool for others who are working in this sector. They can take advantage of this discussion and plan out accordingly, and if required we are always there to help them out in developing their plans or collectivization of their future course of action. So over to you, Indranil.
Yeah, thank you everyone for giving your enlightening insights on the issue which we have organized today. And just to brief you that we have reached around 150 viewers in our Facebook Live, and around 70 participants in this Zoom webinar who are belonging from the students, the civil society organizations, and even some corporates were also there. So thank you all for joining us today. And as mentioned by Mr. Sirkar, that we will definitely on behalf of Change Talks, we would like to take this initiative forward, and this kind of discussions forward for the development of the society at large, and that is what for Change Talks is made. And thank you again thanks all the participants to join with us today. And we had some questions, but due to the paucity of time, and also as the discussions went so long, and all the questions must already have been answered. Thank you everyone again for joining with us today. Stay healthy, stay safe, stay at your not at your home, but at your work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
everybody. Take care of your health. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.